Hola y bienvenidos a Entrenamiento Video 1, Niveles de desarrollo. This is a training video regarding developmental levels in storytime. So storytime often deals with a large range of ages as well as ability to understand what is being shared in the story time. So for example, an infant is going to understand the same words and books and pictures differently than a 2 to 3-year-old or a 5 to 6-year-old even. So this training module is to help you learn a little bit more about those developmental levels and how to choose your storytime books appropriately for the level that you are teaching. A lot of times, storytimes have a very large range of levels, and if, for example, you have toddlers along with 4th and 5th graders, you are going to need to choose books that work for both, but it would probably be best to choose books that are geared more towards the toddlers, because those older children can still understand and still learn from them and still interact with you as well as their younger counterparts in story time, even though you choose those slightly younger books. So starting off with, you have multiple developmental levels in childhood, and there are variations within each child. There are individual differences. However, you can generally say that infancy is 0 to 15 months or so. 15 months being when children are walking usually, starting to talk, even using just a few words, exploring the world around them. From these points in time, 0 to 15 months, a child really needs lower levels of stimulation in order to understand what they are seeing. And what I mean by lower levels of stimulation is that any colors that are on the books or on the pictures need to be very clear cut from each other. So rather than having lots of oranges on the page, you would want orange and blue or yellow and green, or very distinct colors, very distinct shapes, large shapes, block shapes, so that their eyes can actually see them. Contrasting colors are key, because while an infant's eyes aren't going to be able to necessarily determine, oh, that shade of pink is darker than this shade of pink, they will be able to determine that color contrasts greatly with this color. And that will help make story times more enjoyable to them if they're able to see the contrasts. Big pictures are also very helpful for infants, because the bigger the picture, the more likely they are to see it, because their eyes are still developing. Now, after 15 months, they're starting to walk, run, play, grab stuff. They want to explore their world, and they're more capable of exploring their world. While you still want big pictures, big words, you can add more colors. You can add more stimulation to the books. So whereas for an infant you want maybe 1 or 2 pictures on a page, for a toddler you can have a whole story come together with the pictures. You still want very clear-cut colors, however. One thing you can also do that's different in infants and toddlers is toddlers can understand a storyline a bit better than infants. Infants, you don't necessarily need a storyline. You could have a book that's made up entirely of a big picture and a word that corresponds to that picture. So a black apple on a white background, or a red apple on a white background, and the word apple next to it. And then turn the page and you see a green pear on a white background and the word pear. Infants don't need the story. Toddlers are at the point where they can understand a story if it's simple. So, Jack and Jill went up a hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down, and Jill came tumbling after. toddlers can understand that sequence now, and so you can do more stories rather than teaching tools necessarily that you would use for infants. Now, once you get to 5 or 6 years old, you can also start getting longer books. One thing about infants and toddlers both is that their attention spans are not that long. This is because they're exploring their world still learning it. And so every time they see something new, they are going to go and see what that is, or at least try to. So whereas infants and toddlers might need shorter books so that they can stay invested in that book and actually get the literacy training that they need for that book, someone who is 5 or 6 years old who's above a toddler can handle sitting still for a longer book, can handle those colors that aren't necessarily contrasting, can tell that this pink is a deeper shade than this pink. So you have more freedom to choose longer books, more advanced stories. So for example, my friend Carl is sick. Carl has the chicken pox. Chicken pox are no fun. In order to be a nice friend to Carl, I go over to Carl's and bring him soup. When I bring Carl soup, his mom says that I can't go in to see Carl. But I go in anyway. Then the next day, I'm sick and Carl comes to bring me soup. They're able to follow that longer storyline, that more complex storyline better once you get into those higher ages. Now, they will still understand any storytime books that you choose that are better for toddlers. They will still be able to understand and sometimes even appreciate better those storytime books that are meant for infants. But once you get to that 5-year-old stage, you can start choosing those longer books. Now, with all of this information, what you need to remember is whether those books are appropriate for most of the ages in your story times. Now, if you only do one story time a week, and there's mostly toddlers in that story time, then what you might want to do is choose mostly books that are appropriate for toddlers, maybe one that's appropriate for an older age, and a few, one or two that are appropriate for a younger age. That way you are giving everyone what they need, but you are also making your story time best for the amount of people and the age of people that are most likely to come. Please let us know with the contact us or comments if you have any questions at all, and the worksheet will be below the video. Thank you.